Hey guys, okay, so today's video is about Psalms and Bible magic, and I'm going to talk about a couple of books that list off some Psalms verses and some Bible verses that you can sort of use and maybe write your own rituals or design your own hoodoo spells around. And I'm also going to I'm going to give you a little snippet of some Psalms that I use personally. And I've done the research for these Psalms myself, and so let's talk about it. Okay, so there are 5 books of Psalms, and it's believed that these 5 books of Psalms are to sort of mirror or represent the events that take place in the 5 books of Moses. The 5 books of Moses are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers. So those are the 5 books of Moses, and there are 5 books of Psalms to sort of mirror those books. Now, some of the Psalms are said to be written by David. Some are said to be written by Moses himself. Some are said to be written by an anonymous person, just somebody who wrote some Psalms and they decided to put them into the Bible. And some are said to be written by King Solomon. And I don't know if I said this, but some are said to be written by King David. And a lot of the time, when you do the research for these books, you're gonna find that when you do a lot of the reading out of the Bible, they'll say who wrote them at the top. So, and who wrote them kind of gives you each book. I find that there's a theme in each book. Like one theme in a particular book might be health and well-being, and another theme might be protection from enemies and danger, and another theme might be destruction of negativity around you, and protection and divine energy. So these are all important things to think about. My family. So the first book that I will recommend to you is The Power of Psalms by Anna Riva. And this is a hoodoo must-have. If I had a bookshelf completely dedicated to hoodoo, which I don't, I sort of mixed in with all of my older occultic books. But if I had a bookshelf completely dedicated to hoodoo, this would be the first book in there. What I always suggest is that, you read through these, and because she does this based off of the King James Version of the Bible, but some people might not like the King James Version. I personally don't like the King James Version, and I was talking to my godmother about this, and if you're watching this, godmommy, I'm correcting myself. What I don't like about the King James Version is it's in Old English, so it's really hard to understand. They use a lot of words that, aren't really used anymore, and nobody really teaches you how to say the words anymore. People don't really stop to talk about the pronunciation of how this is said and what it means. And so how can you expect to use the words and have intent behind them if you don't understand what they mean? So what I personally use as a Bible is I use the New Revised Standard Version. A lot of old school practitioners, or a lot of old school Christians might even frown upon that idea, but I always suggest that if you don't know what you're reading, the New Revised versions are made for people to understand better. But at the same time, you don't get the kind of mysticism you get with the King James Version. So you could maybe study from the New Revised Version and use the King James really as more of a tool. So use the Revised Version to help you understand, and the King James to help you kind of invoke that mystic power. Anyway, the next book is Charms, Spells, and Formulas. This is by Reverend Ray L. Malbrough. There's no T at the end of his name. And this book is an overall hoodoo, voodoo, VOODOO book. It does incorporate, some Bibles, some angels, some oil lamps, some oils. It does incorporate all of that, but there's a particular section in here, and I'm going to show you this section right here. I've kind of gone through, I don't know if you can see that, I've gone through and I've sort of marked off some psalms and I've added some psalms to it. Wait, these are prayers. These are the saints. Oh, wait. Okay, on this page here, the psalms I've kind of marked off and I've kind of like, added some psalms in here. Don't be afraid to take a pen and don't be afraid to take some pen and a highlighter to your books. Especially, don't be afraid to take one to your Bible or anything you think has useful information to it. The next book is The Magical Power of the Saints. The Magical Power of the Saints has a section here after the candle burning rituals, and it talks about how to use the candle burnings in the Psalms. And this is also by Reverend Ray T. Malbrough. I guess I didn't see that was a T there, but anyway, Reverend Ray T. Malbrough, and he has a section here where, first of all, he uses Bible verses in this book, so it's more of a hoodoo book. But it talks about the saints and how to petition them and what to petition them for and which days and which ones are good for what and what their emblems are, what their symbols are. And then he has a section on candle burning magic, how to read jars, how to set up rituals, how to what the colors mean and everything. So I did a book review on this book, and I read through the whole thing, and this is actually a book that I can actually say that if I didn't know some stuff, it had some stuff in here. It talked about some things, and it didn't talk about anything. It gave you kind of more of a look into maybe Hispanic, Mexican, Puerto Rican traditions of everyday superstition, like candle burnings and saints, not necessarily like into the 21 divisions and how to read this and that, but it did have a section on divination, which was actually pretty interesting. But anyway, this is a good book. It does have a section in here about Psalms. It talks about like a lot of stuff. I found that the section on candle burning and Psalms were very useful, so I did use those. I still kind of refer to them every now and again, so it was very useful. It is very useful, so I will suggest it. My next book of recommendation is two of them: the New Revised Bible and the King James Version of the Bible. You will not get better use out of Psalms unless you yourself go through and study them and figure out which ones mean what to you. Who is it?
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Kai Kai. Could you go away? I'm busy right now. Close my door, Kai Kai, so he doesn't get out. Anyway, the King James Version of the Bible is, like I said, an Aramaicism, but it's a little harder to understand. So study from a New Revised Version if you need to, or just use a dictionary a lot. But yes, keep extensive notes. This Bible was actually passed down from me by a family member who passed away. So it's a sacred gift. So now for the part of the video that I always love, the part where I share some of my personal knowledge. So it is in my belief that you should always, take a bath before you use Psalms. Some of these Psalms I do on a regular basis, like the protection Psalms, like 91, I might do every Saturday. Saturday after I get done, doing what I do on Saturday to keep my protection going. And Psalms 86 I do every Thursday to keep my money flowing. And Psalms 86 is really something I suggest more in a time of need and great need for money. But I mean, you never know when you're going to have great need for money. But anyway, so we're going to talk about a couple of Psalms that you can use to just for general purposes. So some of these Psalms I use in their entirety for something, and some of the longer Psalms I've broken up so you can use them for something else. So we're going to start with the first Psalms. The first Psalms I have listed is Psalms 78 verses 1 through 4. And that is for the blessing of the ancestors. So when you're making offerings to them, you're lighting their white candles, you might just read that verse and meditate on your ancestors and all that they've given you, because that verse is, I can actually I can recollect it, I can recall it now in my head. Like, it just, it's just a lovely songs when you really think about what your ancestors, what your grandparents and your grandma and your grandpa and your great uncles and your great aunts and your great great uncles and your great great aunts and your great 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 grandparents, what they all gave you, you know. So when you just meditate on it, you know, it does help. To keep the faith in your work and prayers. So like when you have doubts on something, you know, Psalm 62 is really good for that. 41 for protecting against being poisoned or drugged. There, I had a scare some years ago where a friend went out to a party and she had something slipped into her roofie. She was roofied basically, and I went into the Bible and I read and I read and I read because I was just in a panic, and I was like, I created a whole ritual for her to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And it's just as simple as lighting a candle and saying the Psalms and doing some other things. And it doesn't happen, but I mean, it hasn't happened since. She's been a lot more careful since going out, but I created a whole ritual for that. Now also Psalms 78 verses 35 through 39 for forgiving and not being revengeful or resentful. So, you know, a lot of times it's really hard to forgive somebody and not be angry with them or not hold on to it a little bit. So, you know, what you might do is you might light a pink candle or a light blue candle, and you might say Psalms 35 or 39 on a Friday, you know, just to get rid of that extra anger, just to clear that away and turn it into a little bit of happiness. Turn it into a little bit of, you know, I'm going to let this go because it was in the past and we're going to move forward. Psalm 78 again, verses 5 through 8, which come after the verses for blessing of the ancestors, is the blessing for the child's spirit. And when I read this Psalms, I really just thought about like how, you know, sometimes we have our children and we take them and we take them to a church or to a coven and they bless them. Well, this could sort of be your own personal blessing. You know, what you do is you just maybe, you know, you mix up some herbs, some holy herbs in some water, and you just wipe your hands and you wipe the child clean with the herbs, and you read the Psalms over them, and you put them in white for a day. And we're just going to talk about one more Psalms. I told you guys about the Psalms that I use for protection, 91 every Saturday after I do my protection work. But let's talk about Psalms 38, which is really good for healing. It's good for healing overall. I use it for all healing type of situations. If somebody is really sick, and I've had family members be sick, like who've been in the hospital, and I've lit a green candle and I've said Psalms 38, and it works very fast. It works. So the intent and the understanding is part of the battle with Psalms, and the other part of the battle is the emotion you put into it, because Psalms are basically hymns of praise in the Old Testament, in the Torah, you know, in the Jewish holy books, like they're psalms of praise. So you have to already be giving praise in your heart to divinity for doing what the Psalms you think it is for. So like, I already have to be giving praise for healing. Thank you for the healing. I already have to be giving praise for the protection. Thank you for the protection. And you know, in some of the Psalms, like in Psalms 91, it'll say that you have to say it before it'll actually happen. Like, you have to say that the Lord is your refuge and shelter, and He protects you, and that's how it works. You have to speak it. So it's it's an affirming process. You read it, you believe it, it happens. You read it, you believe it, it happens. And then as you practice this more and more, it works faster and faster. So that was my video on Psalms. Thank you all for watching, and Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.